message about meditation, but I'd say it's more of a message about freedom. And it's not a message about the sitting kind of meditation either. It's about the practice of being present to life without being swept away. When we find ourselves easily irritated, never happens to you, I'm sure, or overreacting, not that either, it is simply because we have lost our balance. This happens to me fairly often. And to most people, I guess. And the good news is that to regain our balance, all we need to do is return our attention to the present moment and notice what is right in front of our eyes. The car in front of us, the clouds, the furnishings in the room. Sound too simple? Well, it's a lot simpler than coping with the painful and scary pictures that are being painted by our minds nonstop, which, let's face it, are all about the past or the future. So let's define the past. It's pretty broad. From the stupid driver who cut me off a minute ago to my divorce 20 years ago. Same with the future. The whole gamut from how will I pay the rent if I lose my job to wonder if it's going to rain on my party. The mind never stops offering up wild rides from regret and resentment to anxiety and fear. Sound fun? Not too much. So what is present moment awareness? Listening to the sounds around me, perhaps? The wind or the words my companion is saying? Feeling on my skin the cool air in the room or the warmth of the sun? Noticing the color of the sky or the color of my loved one's eyes? Noticing what's happening right here and right now. This is a simple and highly effective and practical way to meditate. As we return attention to the present moment, we calm down, and when we calm down, we regain our balance. Now, the goal is not to become passive or apathetic. Ask any martial arts expert, and that she will tell you that balance is power. Am I right about that, Emmy?
Yes, you are.
Just checking. Think about a car idling in neutral. The engine is fully powered, fully awake, but sitting still, not roaring randomly through the streets, but containing its power, waiting for the driver's command. And who is the driver? Why, I am. The true self residing within as pure life force, undiluted by judgments, obsessiveness, or frantic activity. Pure energy awaiting the direction of spirit. This is the practice of being fully alive and fully present. Few of us can stay in this place all the time, and so yes, we practice. Like, say it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and you're standing on your deck, and you're looking out at your yard, and at first you see that the trees need pruning, the grass needs cutting, and the garden needs weeding. Your mind has started making its to-do list, and almost imperceptibly, your stress level is rising. There is a certain kind of energy in this stress, but instead of jumping into action, you stay still and continue to look, and something shifts, and you begin to see other things. The colors of nature are alive and vibrant. And as you stay, the greens get greener, and the browns browner, and the yellows yellower. Sunlight on the leaves makes them shimmer. Breathing in this beauty, you are nurtured in the spirit. So interesting, when When you first looked out, there seemed to be nothing much going on, but now you begin to notice the way the lights and the shadows play on the grass. You notice those squirrels chasing each other up and down the tree, and the sound of the morning birds and the leaves swaying in the wind. Funny, you've been doing almost nothing for the past 10 minutes, and yet you have never felt more alive. Your higher self has taken charge. This is a different kind of energy. Interesting how being still allows us to feel more and see a bigger picture. And how feeling more and seeing a bigger picture causes our hearts to open. And when our hearts open, gratitude rises. Now, can you imagine taking this same awareness from the deck to the dinner table? What might it be like to really see and hear the person you're with? To just be there, a neutral, spacious presence. You know, we really don't have to have an opinion about everything that is said. We could just notice it, take it in, and be with it. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Don't look at me. I'm not looking at you. It's possible that what we hear and see is neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. In fact, it doesn't really matter, because all we desire is to be there with our loved one, to see and hear him or her clearly. Is this not the essence of love? And isn't the spiritual path all about learning to love? The paths to awakening love are rich and varied. Guides, both past and present day, offer us their wisdom and experience. We are particularly blessed today to live in a time when the wisdom of the spiritual, hundreds of spiritual masters, is so accessible to us. Yesterday I revisited a movie called With One Voice, in which 15 acknowledged present-day mystics from all the world's religious traditions were interviewed on two questions. One, what is enlightenment? And two, how does one become enlightened? What I heard was so affirming of the unity path that it brought tears to my eyes. What great miracle of grace has brought us here to this moment at this time? What the mystics in the film shared was humble and simple. It resonated deep in my heart and soul. All religions are to be honored, they said, because they all help people find their way to God, regardless of the name used for God, they said. The experience of God is the same for everyone. And then they said, there is only one presence and one power shared by every person who seeks it, no matter what religious tradition they choose. Each mystic said in different words that enlightenment is the process of becoming authentic, self-aware, and sincere, of coming to know deep in your soul that all human beings are manifestations of God. The work we all share is that of removing whatever has caused us to be out of touch with this truth. Our opinions have a lot to do with it, I think. But once that light comes on, they said, life is never the same. They said that the hallmark of enlightenment is peace, centered presence in the midst of whatever is going on. And they said that love is the power that holds the universe and all of nature together and binds us person to person, regardless of our personality or lifestyle or ethnicity. They said that love is the golden thread that weaves all the great religious traditions together, and that spiritual practice and compassionate service are the foundations of it all. That's about it. No complex theology, just the essential instruction to practice being present and offer our true self to life. Simple, yes. Easy, maybe not. As one Hasidic rabbi named Zusa told his students, when I die, God is not going to ask me why I was not more like Moses or Joshua. He will ask me why I was not Zusa. To make our lives an expression of our heartfelt values. To know what enhances our life energy and offer that energy to the world. Nurture life. That is what practicing the presence of God is. As much as the world's religions like to draw dividing lines between them, the truth is that they were all conceived out of someone's spiritual experience of the presence of God. But the originator then had the monumental task, I'd say, of passing the essential elements of this experience to his or her disciples who had not had the same experience and who were going to have to try to grasp it with their minds. This has caused much to be lost in translation over the centuries. Beautiful, undying ideas have been distorted and turned into justification for conflict and division, which has confused a lot of people. And this is a darn shame, because all the world's great religions have that golden thread running straight through the middle of them. It's like the mullah said when challenged by a disciple who was frustrated by the complexity of the Quran. I need you to sum it all up, he said. Can you explain the entire scripture to me while standing on one foot? And the mullah lifted one foot from the ground and said, if something is hateful to you, don't do it to anyone else. The rest is commentary. Mm-hmm. The Buddhists call it nirvana. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. It is freedom and peace. And Jesus and the Buddha made it very clear that this is the only worthwhile goal there really is. In the New Testament, Jesus used the term kingdom of heaven 79 times. He called it the pearl of great price, and he said that it could not be found outside of us, but that it was buried deep inside each and every person, waiting to be discovered. But how do we discover it? We come to church and listen to the message, and we read and we take classes and we meditate, all of which are support for keeping our minds focused and our hearts open. But these things of themselves are not the path. They are fingers pointing to the path. An ancient Buddhist proverb says that the reason most people don't reach enlightenment is that they insist on worshiping the teapot rather than drinking the tea. What is the tea? The experience of the presence of God, right here, right now, in this church, at the dinner table, in the car, or in the emergency room. Breathe, see, hear, and be. Once we've experienced this presence, this life force, this benevolence, whether through a sudden awakening or through years of sincere seeking, life is never the same again. And neither are we. For now, we know our own true nature. If I asked you, what does true self or Christ consciousness really mean, you might struggle to find the right words. But your heart knows. What values does your true self hold dear? What does your true self spend its time thinking about? How does your true self handle a challenge? does it regard and interact with other people? What priorities does your true self hold? Our hearts know the answers to these questions. Our answers will be different, yet they will all be the same too, because each one of us is a unique expression of God, united by a common nature, which is love, and a common purpose, which is awakening the power of love within us. As much as I enjoyed spending time, that hour with the world's greatest mystics in their monasteries and ashrams yesterday, I truly believe what 13th century Meister Eckhart wrote. Enlightenment cannot be found, cannot be attained by fleeing the world, by running away from things, or by turning solitary and going apart from the world. Rather, we must learn an inner solitude wherever or with whomever we may be. We must learn to penetrate outward appearances and find God in the midst of things. Actually, Thomas Keating, the great priest, author, and one of the featured mystics on the film, joked that he thought the whole idea that holiness was to be found in the monastery must have been invented by the monks and the nuns themselves. For most of us, the kingdom of heaven is found through the practice of living in the world, where we're challenged to realize that we are one with all people everywhere, interconnected, interdependent, created and sustained by the same source. Everyone. The experience of God is the same for everyone. It is deep, abiding peace, love, and compassion. It was truly thrilling to hear Buddhists, Catholic priests, monks, rabbis, gurus, Islamic leaders, Hindu shamans, Taoists, and Native American medicine women all describe the same experience of God. Where there is love, compassion, peace, and kindness, there is God. Each interaction between us offers the opportunity to experience more of the presence of God and express our own God self. If we truly get this, then every contact becomes sacred. None are inconsequential or insignificant, because each is an opportunity to tell the truth with love, to listen in the heart, to become more open and sensitive and caring. And even when we fall short, love gives us the opportunity to use the experience to heal whatever one of our wounds has gotten in the way. Most of us are obsessed with managing our affairs and controlling our experiences. We think we'll find inner peace if we feel safe and comfortable. The trouble is, searching for inner peace in the outer world never ends. One threat or annoyance is overcome and another pops up in its place. We're like the little Dutch boy trying to keep his fingers in each of the holes in the dike. The irony is that searching for peace by trying to control circumstances is highly stressful. Meister Eckhart spoke of the urgency of this awareness. He said, "Unless we meet the outer world with our inner world, existence will crush us." As Unity students, we are learning that the quality of our life experience is determined by our consciousness, not our circumstances. Each of us has been conditioned to believe that there is a right way for things to be. And if we wish, we are free to hold on to our rigid ideas of right and wrong, to hold on to our blame and resentment. That's easy to do, actually. What's much more challenging is to admit what that quiet voice of truth within knows, that inner peace lies in the acceptance of all things exactly as they are. We know this truth, but we forget it. Despite having experienced moments of joy when we felt our oneness with God and life, we can't seem to stay there. We keep falling asleep. And you know what? I know you know this. This is very painful for spiritual people. It's like standing at the border of the promised land, seeing the beautiful landscape, and yet being unable to step across the border and take up residence. But I've been comforted by a wonderful teacher named Adyashanti, who says that this is what the path toward enlightenment is often like. He has a wonderful book which I'd recommend to all of you seekers called The End of Your World. And in it he addresses this dilemma directly. I think this is beautiful. I want to read it for you. Awakening and enlightenment have nothing to do with becoming perfect, holy, or saintly. What is truly holy is perceiving from wholeness, which means not being divided inside. It is that which divides us inside that needs to be healed, those inner conflicts. What is required after a glimpse of awakening is radical honesty. A willingness to look at how we unenlighten ourselves. How we bring ourselves back into the gravitational pull of the dream state and allow ourselves to become conflicted. Being truly honest with ourselves can be challenging, I know. The ego wants us to dismiss our unenlightened behavior, thought patterns, and conflicted emotional states. It doesn't want us to look at how we unenlighten ourselves. It wants us to think that somebody out there is doing it. It tells us that the kingdom of heaven is a dream and that material life is real, which of course is the exact opposite of the truth. Sincere self-inquiry is the path that leads to healing of our spiritual blindness and inner conflict. By learning to notice what's going on inside us, we begin to build a bridge from darkness to light, from unconsciousness to consciousness. As some of us learned at Aham a couple of weeks ago, we can simply ask ourselves in a moment of upset, who's feeling this? Who's thinking this? Which leads to the obvious response, what? I am. So what is I am? Pure being, the higher self, the heart, the inner witness that sees our stuff without judgment. Compassion is essential for this inquiry, because only love and gentleness will allow our fragmented, fragile, ashamed parts to come out of hiding and speak. Compassion is not repelled by any of those unawakened states or behaviors. Instead, it moves toward them and embraces them. In its tender embrace, our alienated parts are reunited and we become not perfect, but whole. Yes, it takes a bit of courage to look at our stuff clearly. But for those who have the courage to walk this path, the prize is pure gold, valuable beyond measure, the pearl of great price. We're going to find our true selves, not the masks we hide behind, and not the stories we tell ourselves, our authentic selves. And we're going to find out that this self, this capital S self, is pure love and compassion. And through the process, we're going to bathe ourselves in the compassion of acceptance. We're going to settle into our own skin and feel at home. As we come to know who we truly are, we no longer identify with our unawakened thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Most of us will still have them at times. Guilt, shame, blame, and resentment have been deeply conditioned. We didn't come in with them. Adyashanti says our conditioning is like a train going 100 miles an hour. Just because we look out the window and see the place we want to get off doesn't mean the train is going to stop on a dime. It has a lot of momentum. But being quickly aware when we've fallen asleep and knowing that our stuff is not who we are, this is priceless. We see it and watch it without being swept away by it or being compelled to act on it, or for God's sake not beating ourselves up for it. We see that our stuff is a lot like everyone else's stuff, and it's not the truth about them either. Yeah, priceless. Now, compassion doesn't mean listening to the sad story over and over again. It is not sympathy. It is not enabling. It's not rescuing or fixing. No, compassion is the tender-hearted wish for the return of awareness, for the understanding that wholeness and peace are always present in the center of our being and everyone else's. So this morning, what I'd like to invite you to do with me is to practice compassion through another chant. This one based on the Buddhist practice of Tonglen. Because we know that the brokenness we see in the world is a reflection of our own. Because we know that the love and compassion within us is more powerful than any condition, we are ready to take healing action. We're ready to move toward the pain and transmute it in our hearts. Tonglen can help us dissolve that tightness around our hearts that causes us to reject in other people the things we can't stand to look at in ourselves. Tonglen is a Tibetan word which literally means taking in and sending out. The essence of the practice is that we breathe in what is painful and unwanted with a sincere wish that all become free of suffering. We drop the storyline that goes along with the pain and open our hearts to the energy of it, unafraid of it. Then exhaling, we send out love and compassion as healing energy for ourselves and everyone else. And so now I'd invite you to prepare for meditation, whichever way you do, by becoming still and focusing on the breath. We breathe in and out from the heart, affirming our acceptance of ourselves, other people, and the world exactly as we are at this moment. While also affirming that the power of I am within us, pure being, divine source, true self, is far greater than any of it.
Breathe on out the love. Let
allow your attention to return to this place, this time and space. Breathe. Give thanks. Give thanks for being an instrument of peace on this planet. And so it is.